Hey everybody, it is time once again for Michael's record collection. This is a special bonus edition, and joining me from Playlist Wars, you may remember I've had Gomez on previously from Playlist Wars, the other co-host who was supposed to also be with us that night, but sadly he was a little busy. He's got a life. Brian Colburn, thanks for being with me.
Dude, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited about this one. And actually, I love the episode that Gomez did. I love Linkin Park, but the fact that we're talking about the Cars tonight, I'm going to be honest, I like this album more. So I got a lot more to contribute to this album than I do to Linkin Park. So I think you're the winner here because you get two great episodes because Gomez is really passionate about Linkin Park, and I'm a little more passionate about the Cars. So not that I don't like Linkin Park though.
After hearing it a few times and talking it over with Gomez, I can honestly say I'm still not a Linkin Park guy, but this, well, I like this a lot. We'll be talking about
this.
That is the one those are the ones I mean. And you got something else
one back here on my original vinyl. Is this what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about.
And can I also say, you'll be impressed by this. It took me years to hunt this down, but it's actually the original Target CD edition, not the store, but when CDs were first made, they were shaped like a Target. This is the original pressing of Heartbeat City on CD. It took me many, many years to find this used. And when I did, I kind of yelped out in the store and I said to my wife, I'm like, I got the Target edition of the Cars Heartbeat City. And she, that's good, honey.
That's nice.
Like, so I'm excited to talk about this one.
Awesome. Before we get to our Cars talk, let's talk a little bit about, just as a reminder, you are the co-host of Playlist Wars, which is a fantastic podcast that, and I'm not just saying that because you had me as a guest. You guys make playlists based on a band or a topic, and you come up with 10 songs each, you and your co-host Gomez and a guest, and you go through your playlist one at a time, and then at the end of it, you turn it over to your listeners, which is an interesting twist, and they get to vote for the playlist they like best. Gomez has already kind of told the story, but just from your perspective, how did Playlist Wars start? How did it become a thing?
I was on a previous music podcast that I had been doing for a few years, and I started coming up with different ideas of how to kind of grow the show. But the show was unfortunately at a point where things weren't working out timing wise between me and the host, who I'm still great friends with. And he was in the middle of a move, and the show was kind of going on hiatus. And I was talking to Gomez on the phone one night, and I said, I got this idea, but it's a little different than what I'm doing now. It's not really interview based. This is more of a, I don't want to call it a game show, but it's a game surrounding opinions where the opinions don't matter and neither do the votes, because we're talking about something that's subjective. And Gomez goes, I'm listening. And I kind of ran through the idea of Playlist Wars, and he's like, we're doing this. This is great, because at the end of the day, the name alone, Playlist Wars, is ironic because we're not arguing with each other. We're not crapping on the songs that everyone picks. These are all topics and artists and songs that we like. Now, there might be a song we resonate with more that makes our list, but that doesn't mean we hate the songs that made the other person's list. So this isn't like an angry battle where we're crapping on each other the whole time and it's all negative. We're celebrating the music that we talk about on the show. So it's a little bit of an ironic twist on the name, but bringing people in to vote. So we're giving our opinions on songs, bands, albums, and then the listeners are giving their opinions on our opinions.
Yeah.
And what it does is it creates a dialogue in a circle, because then we go on social media and we say, okay, hey, you guys voted for here. Why not these songs? What would you pick? And then when you hear other people's sides, it just becomes a conversation that kind of takes itself outside of the podcast. And we try to include podcasters and people that chime in with us on social media as much as we can in the show as well, because the people that are listening, I know, because when I listen to podcasts and they're talking about lists, I'm in the car yelling, going, why didn't you pick this? And I know people are doing that with us. So we want to try to incorporate that as much as possible into each episode, because without them listening, it would just be as our episode would just be you, me, and Gomez talking to ourselves, which is still fun and it's still rewarding. But having the people that listen chime in and kind of become part of the conversation, it's just a fantastic little community that we're slowly building up here.
Yeah, that interactive component to your show is really what kind of sets it apart from others. And music should be fun, and it should be about talking about music. Like when we were kids, you probably weren't too much different than me. When you're a kid, you get a new record, you're excited, you put it on, you want your friends to come over and listen to it, you talk about it, what was great about it, what sucked. And then when they get a new record, you go over to their house and you do the same thing. So and that's kind of what Michael's record collection is. It's just a way to talk about great music, and that's what we're going to do today with the Cars, Heartbeat City. But let me talk to you a little bit about it, a little bit about what your background is with music. Like I know from listening to your show that you seem like you kind of gravitated early on to your parents' record collection. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. Yeah. Every Friday night, my dad would turn the TV off, open up the cabinet, pull out the records, and it would be music night. And we were, make your own DJ. We would my father would pick a song, my mother would pick a song, I would pick a song, and we kind of go in circles. And, sometimes being the 4 or 5-year-old, I'd get, 1 or 2 picks in a row, a couple extra, throw the kid a bone.
Yeah.
But I got introduced to so many bands that way because I would play a song by, let's say, the Chipmunks off my Chipmunk record. I had a record called Chipmunk Punk. And one of the first songs on it was the Chipmunks doing Refugee by Tom Petty. And my father's like, "Oh, you like the Chipmunks, huh? It's a good Chipmunks song, right?" And he would take Chipmunk Punk off and he would put Damn the Torpedoes on and say, "What do you think of this?" And, 4-year-old, I'm like, "That's the Chipmunks?" "No, Brian, that's the song the Chipmunks were singing." "I love this song." So, and then it just became from there. It was that type of conversation and dialogue that really helped me shape the way I listen to music.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of gravitated. My parents had records, but I don't recall them playing a lot of their records in the house. Once they had kids and they had 4 of us, they didn't really have a lot of time for record playing. So I kind of discovered their records later, but they got me a stereo as a kid, and they got me some K-Tel records. I got Goofy Greats. So I had Goofy Greats, all these, Alley Oop and, Yummy Yummy and all the Sugar Sugar and all these songs.
Was one of them Hit Express in the early 80s?
I did have Hit Express, yes.
That was the one with the train. I had that record.
Yeah.
That was one of my records growing up too.
Yeah. Hit Express, Music Machine, I think was one. There was one called Out of Sight. And of course Goofy Greats, and it had Snoopy and the Red Baron and stuff like that on it. But we always listened to the radio in the car with my mom, and so we listened to a lot of pop. She would put on a top 40 station, and they were still playing it when I was little. They were still playing Beatles songs. So I remember my first favorite song was Yellow Submarine, because what kid wouldn't love "We All Live in a Yellow Submarine"? And it just kind of grew from there. And then I remember, because like you, I'm from New Jersey, but I moved to Ohio when I was very young, and we would take these long car trips back to visit the grandparents, and they had a show on their, I guess it was probably not cable yet, but they had a show called The Monkees on, and that's how I discovered the Monkees, and then the theme song for the Monkees became my favorite song. So you gravitate toward that stuff as a kid, and then, of course, growing up in the Midwest, I went from there straight to Kiss, because Kiss was huge in the Midwest. But what was your first favorite song or album that you remember? Like a rock album or a pop album?
Believe it or not, it's the same band we're talking about tonight. It's the self-titled album from the Cars.
Mm-hmm.
Good Times Roll was one of the first songs my father put on every time we were doing music night. And there was a skip in the first chorus. So to this day, when I listen to the song, to tell you how many times I heard it as a kid, when the chorus actually happens without the skip, I feel like something's wrong. I'm like, where's the skip? It should be Good Times Roll, because you get it skipped at the R. And I just remember that vividly as a kid. And that album just shaped my musical life, because It was a genre defining album,
Hmm.
and it was a genre crossing album. New wave, punk, rock, a lot of the elements of music that I listen to this day were all melded into one and ushered in by this band. And hearing this song so many times, this album so many times, just kind of showed me that you could do a lot of different things with music and make it work. So it
Hmm.
immediately expanded my horizon just based on the Cars being so multifaceted as they were.
Yeah. It's funny you brought this Skip thing up because I was on the Records Revisited podcast talking about Boston's Don't Look Back album, and
Yep,
I
yep.
had a skip in that album. I had a skip, and I'm still looking for that every time I play it on CD or the new vinyl that I have. So I get
Yeah,
you.
Ben and Wayne are fantastic. I love that show too. Great
Great
guys.
guys. Yeah, I actually got to see Wolfgang Van Halen's band with Ben, so that
I
was
saw.
great.
I was very jealous. I was living vicariously through you both from up here in New Jersey because I can't wait to see Mammoth WVH. I mean,
Yeah,
Wolfie is otherworldly talent. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, he's not Eddie Van Halen, but he doesn't need to be. He's a
no,
talent in and of itself.
yeah, he's tremendous, and it was great because you could just tell the joy on his face at finally getting to headline because he'd been out on the road with Guns N' Roses and getting to headline and seeing this packed theater just there to see him was it was really very touching to see his reaction to that. So I was thrilled that he even apologized at the end of the night. I'm sorry we don't have more songs to play. We played everything we have, so it was great. Um, the great thing about music is that you never know where it's going to take you. And you actually became a musician. You just told me before we started something that I didn't know, that you have music on Spotify.
Certainly do. Yeah.
So how did
And,
that come about? When did you start to become a musician? And tell me a little bit about your music on Spotify.
well, I started with, if you listen to Playlist Wars, the theme music is actually my hard rock band, The Fourth. And we were around in 1999 to 2002, and we recorded those songs. And that theme song is one of our songs called Left Behind. And it's just, when we were starting the podcast, I reached out to the guys and said, hey guys, I'm starting this podcast. It's Playlist Wars. Got to have an aggressive theme song. I know the perfect one. I want to use Left Behind. And all three of them went, do it, use it, love it. And drummer Jay, who's been on the podcast several times, is the one who plays drums on that song.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I did a pop punk band for a few years. Then I started going into the cover band route, which I instantly got excited with, and then just as fast got de-enticed with it, because starting at 11:30 at night and playing till 4 in the morning for a bunch of completely whacked out drunk people when you've got a child at home just became disenfranchising to me.
Yeah.
So at that point I said, I want to continue music, but my schedule is going to be a lot different because the kids are the most important thing here. So I started writing songs at home. And because my background is in radio and in broadcasting, I have recording equipment. So I slowly started recording these songs. And over 2 years, I put out 3 albums of songs that I did using programmed drum tracks, but everything else was kind of me
Mm-hmm.
on bass, on guitar. I would get my friends here and there to record a part. But then in 2011, I said, I want to do a real album. Everything played by other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do it with a budget of like nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
And I said, I want to challenge myself to be able to mix and record an album with real drums, full tracks. And I actually went online and found some amazing drummers that you can hire them out. They would record the song for you. One of which was LeJoe Young, who is Travis Tritt's touring drummer.
Wow.
So him and I became talking. I would basically record a track to a click, send it to him. He would come up with a drum part, send it back, and we would actually go back and forth and say, hey, no, I kind of want this part to go halftime, then this to kick back in, and we would build the song, and he would kind of write the drums for it. Then I would play the bass myself because I'm a bassist first and foremost. And then I started reaching out like, you know what? I want to have a lead guitar on this track that's a slide guitar. So I called my buddy DC Slater, who played in The Fourth, who's that hard rock band I told you about, and said, hey, man, I know you got recording gear, need some slide work. I know you're the man for it. I would send him the track. And then through networking with other bands, there's a band based out of South Carolina called Danger Muffin. They're a jam band. They're absolutely fantastic. Seen them many a times on the jam band circuit. I got to talking with their guitarist, and I ended up opening for them one night. And I told him about the song I was working on, and I just said flat out, love you for you to jam on it with me. And he goes, I've got a recording gear at home. He goes, email me the track. He gave me his email, sent him the track. 2 days later, I got a guitar part from him. And then just through online social networking, I got in touch with Jamie Cohen, who is the lead guitarist in From Good Homes. And I told him how big of a fan of their music I was and how my music was influenced by theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And went to a show one night, was talking with them after, and I said, I would love some violin in these two songs I have. And he said, send me your address. I can come down this weekend and record it. And I went, sure, you can. So I gave him my address. And as we're leaving, my wife said, you realize, Brian, that this isn't happening. And I said, yeah, like I thought he was just being extra nice.
Uh-huh.
Next morning, my phone rings and he goes, hey, I'm going to be there around 1:00. Is that okay for you? I'm like, sure is. Scrambling to clean the house with all the kids' toys. I set up an area in the basement. He came over, recorded 2 songs for me on violin, and we sat and talked about From Good Homes music for about 2 hours afterwards. Such an amazing day. And over the next year, I did this continuously and mixed this album, and it's called Forever Was Worth the Wait. And it's up on Spotify and iTunes and Bandcamp. And it's just me working with a full band and songs that I had crafted over 3 years. I finally did them the way I wanted to do them. And it's an album I'm very proud of. The song Once Upon a Time is a song I wrote about the night my first daughter was born. A few years later, I had my second daughter, and she's now wondering where her song is coming. So I got to get writing on Twice Upon a Time. But just a lot of songs that are really special to me. They're real personal, very acoustic rock based. I'm a big 90s rock guy. So my influences, obviously, Tom Petty, if you've heard anything on Playlist Wars, but Toad the Wet Sprocket, Hootie and the Blowfish, that acoustic 90s sound is kind of what I was going for on this album. And it's something I'm very proud of. I look back at it and I can listen to the songs with a smile on my face and know that it was time well spent.
And they're on there just under Brian Colburn.
Yep. The album is called Forever Was Worth the Wait. It's a part of the lyrics to one of the songs, and it's under Brian Colburn.
Okay, Colburn. And go check it out on Spotify. And also be sure to check out Playlist Wars. I believe it's playlistwarspodcast.com.
That's correct.
They are also all over all the social medias. So just type in Playlist Wars. You'll find them on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and it's a fun community. So, and also be sure to check out their episode on music from 1971 and vote for me because I need the votes.
I think as of right now, as of the night we're taping, I think we both need the votes. So I'll take some too, people. I think Gomez is in the lead right now with a fantastic playlist all around. I mean, all 3 were fantastic, but yeah, you got to go listen and see for yourself. We got to see where you align. I'm totally fine with hawking for votes.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. So one of the reasons that you and I are going to be talking about the Cars Heartbeat City is because you, my friend, have been doing a lot of podcasts as a guest, and everybody wants you to talk about your favorite album, The Cars by the Cars. And so when I asked you to come on, you're like, please don't make me talk about the Cars again. And I said, okay, plan B. How about Heartbeat City? Because I feel like that is probably the album that a lot of people remember very, very well because in my generation, you would have seen all of those great videos on MTV. It was a huge album in 1984. It's an album from the year that I graduated from high school. It came out just a couple of months before I graduated from high school. So obviously it resonates with me on that level as well. So you graciously agreed that we would do the Heartbeat City thing. And so here we are. And the Cars Heartbeat City was released on March 13th, 1984 on Elektra Records. A 3-year gap since Shake It Up, their 5th studio album. It is a quadruple platinum album that equals their Candio album. It's second only to the Cars, which sold 6 million Although I got to believe that Heartbeat City helped boost some of those sales for that first album. And it actually has sold twice as many copies as Shake It Up, which is also a very good album. It's the first Cars album not produced by Roy Thomas Baker. The band felt that they needed that sort of relationship had run its course, and they needed to branch out and find something else. Rick Ocasek had a real fondness for the sound of the AC/DC sound that Mutt Lange was able to come up with. So this was produced by Robert John Mutt Lange. It's a wonder that it didn't end up sounding like AC/DC, because it seems like everything else that he touches sort of sounds like that a bit. But Rick loved that sound, and they wanted to do a modern sounding record, as modern sounding a record as possible. And I think that in 1984 they really pulled that off.
Could not agree more. Although there's always been a part of me that, because I'm so fond of the self-titled album and the sound that they had, even on their darker albums like Panorama, I would love to hear what a Roy Thomas Baker produced Heartbeat City would be.
Yeah, that would be
Because
interesting.
Mutt Lange really knew how to put the shine and the sheen on the sound. And this is their cleanest, most sonically perfect album. Roy Thomas Baker left some imperfections in the older albums, and that was kind of a, I don't want to say a nuance, but it really helped add to the punky, almost raw aspect of the band, even though they were a slightly polished new wave band. Heartbeat City, they were the fully polished new wave band.
Yeah.
And
I
really,
imagine I can imagine that a lot of longtime Cars fans were not thrilled at the sound of this record when it first came out.
I bet not. I bet you this is what happens when a band like Fitz and the Tantrums, who started off as a 70s neo soul group, came out with Hand Clap, which is a total pop song.
Yeah. And another analogy, I think, for my audience would be when Rush started using keyboards at the forefront of their records. There's lost a lot of old time fans, but this album was recorded from July 1983 to January 1984 at Battery Studios in London. Ironically, the album didn't chart in England, despite it being exactly the kind of synth pop that was big in the country at that time. They spent 7 months recording this in London, and Rick Ocasek has said that time spent there, that much time spent there, was part of the reason the group disbanded at one point.
Which is a shame, because they got a hell of an album out of it.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult working with Mutt Lange. I think everybody comes away from that experience saying he pushed us. We learned so much, but he's also very, very exacting and very meticulous. And it's got to be a difficult thing. They thought they were going to record this in 1 or 2 months. Little did they know.
Right.
It's a short album, Brian. It's the 10 songs only add up to 38, just under 39 minutes long.
Yeah. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. And sometimes that's perfectly okay.
Yeah. That's the kind of album that you don't mind going, oh, wow, that's over already. I'm going to hit play again and listening to it again. It's like you mentioned, it's a glossy, slick production. Once you know it's Mutt, you can hear instantly all the elements that ended up being used on Def Leppard's Hysteria, and which came out 3 years later. Rick sings almost all the songs. Ben sings Drive. Ben Orr sings Drive, Stranger Eyes, and It's Not the Night. 6 of the 10 songs were singles.
Right. Well, It's Not the Night is one of the few Cars songs that actually features both Rick and Benjamin on lead vocals. I had to look this up, because when I saw that, I'm going, how many? Because their voices are sonically the same. So you can honestly, if you're introducing somebody to the Cars, and you could say, is that singer 1 or singer 2? If they don't know anything about the band, I bet you they'd get a lot of them wrong. They have a very similar sound. But Since I Held You from Candy-O, You Wear Those Eyes from Panorama, and You Are the Girl from Door to Door are the other 3 songs where both Rick and Ben sang lead with It's Not the Night, which, out of all those songs, It's Not the Night's my favorite of all of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. So the Cars at that time, Rick Ocasek, vocals, guitar, he wrote all the songs. There was a partial writing credit for Greg Hawkes on one song. We'll get to that. Ben Orr, vocals and bass. Elliot Easton, guitar and vocals. Greg Hawkes, keyboards, vocals. Fairlight and CMI programming. David Robinson, drums and Fairlight programming. There were a lot of keyboards and a lot of synthesized sounds on this album. And it kicks off with one of the singles, Hello Again. And what a perfect album opener. The song's called Hello Again. They've been 3 years since they've, had seen us as the band released the new album. And this single was released on October 15th of 1984. It was the fourth single from the album. It reached number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Also reached number 8 on the Hot Dance Disco chart. Number 22 on the Top Rock Tracks chart. And very experimental, this song. Right from the get-go, that vocal intro was at the time, a marvel of experimentation.
And what's interesting about just the title track alone, Hello Again, while they've been gone for 3 years, could be seen as that's the reason they wrote it. But this is a new sound for the Cars. Mm-hmm. So it could also, in a kind of a metaphoric way, be like, hello, again, we're somebody new now. This is like a new version of this hello, because we're reintroducing ourselves. Because if it's not far removed from the self-titled, but it is far removed. You could honestly make an argument that it's not two different bands. It's not that egregious, but this is a different Cars band than you were getting on Panorama, on Shake It Up, on Candy-O. This is a reinvention, a rebirth of them. So Hello Again is a perfect way to open the album.
Yeah. And right from the get-go, you are hearing the Mutt Lange influence. If you listen to this thing on a good set of headphones, you're hearing all these very simple but very subtle and intricate parts that just add so much texture and so many layers to it. And all of these parts alone are not that complex, but when you add them all up together, I can only imagine these guys trying to figure out, how are we going to do this when we go on the road?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was definitely one of those songs that when you listen to on a good set of headphones, it's a marvel, because you're hearing sounds getting panned left and right in the back of your ears. I mean, this song really, if you close your eyes, it's all over the place. Even in the beginning, the do, 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 hello, like you're hearing it kind of sway back and forth. And it's almost like a visual light show to your ears.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what they're doing. And I think they were able to capture that by using the one and only Andy Warhol to make the video, because the video was pretty iconic. I remember this because my parents had the VHS tape of Heartbeat City, the videos.
Okay.
And this was the one where every time during the song, at some point, I kept getting like a hand over my eyes from somewhere, because there were some parts of the video that weren't meant for my young eyes.
Yeah.
So as I got older and saw the real video, that's Warhol written all over it. And it went with the kind of the weird nature of this song. And it was a perfect video companion piece for it, which I think we're going to say for several songs on this album.
Yeah. Yeah. Warhol directed it and was in the video. But you're right. When you said the word weird, it is very, there's some strange, first of all, keyboards are everywhere. There's all kinds of keyboards, all different kinds of keyboard parts. And then there's these sort of munchkin sounds at one point in the song. And it is like they're telling you right up front, this is not anything you've heard from the Cars before.
Right. Right.
They go from track 1 to track 2, Looking for Love, which is it definitely is a mood change right there, right off the bat. A kind of a simple song with great harmony vocals, and it's, I think, an overlooked track on this album. But it's hard. I mean, it's easy to overlook a track that has so many strong songs on this.
Yeah, and I think the thing was, it starts off as a ballad, but then it kind of goes to a slightly mid-tempo. I don't want to say dancey, but. And I think that I don't think radio could handle that in 1984, because if you listen to the songs that were made the singles, they're coming at you at one pace. This song starts off where it's almost like you could strip it down to an acoustic ballad. But then when they kick it in with it, you can't stop, but you can't go, it becomes this snappy ditty. And then it goes back into the chorus with these beautiful layered harmonies. It's complex in its simplistic nature. I know that sounds contradictory, but it's a complex arrangement on what would be, if it was played in one tempo, a pretty simple ballad.
Yeah, it is. It is. The tempo change was one of the interesting twists to the song. So yeah, I can understand why people would be like, "Wait a minute, is this? What do we do with this? Do we play? Is it a slow song? Is it a fast song? We don't know what to do with it." I understand that. Um, Track 3 is my favorite track on the album. So I'll ask you what yours is at some point, or you can offer it up
I
at
will
some
tell
point.
you when we get to mine. How does that
Okay,
sound?
sounds
All right,
good.
because this one is up there, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, this Magic is an unbelievable track. The second single it was released as a single May 7th of 84. It went up to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was number 1 on the mainstream rock chart. Greg Hawkes said this about it: Mutt suggested something that sounded like the Star Wars Cantina Band. It's got very simple guitar chords and like a sort of a heavy drum that you can hear that drum sound on Hysteria from Def Leppard.
Oh yeah,
You can go back to Pyromania and hear that even that drum sound that he gets on this song. What are your overall thoughts on Magic?
well, first off, the video proved that Rick Ocasek was larger than life because he could walk on water.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. But the song is definitely one of the most iconic pop songs of the 80s. So much so that on my old podcast, I interviewed Will Turpin, who's the bass player for Collective Soul. And there was always a song by them that made me raise an eyebrow. And finally, when I was able to interview him, I was able to say, "Hey, Will, Hollywood, I got to ask, are you guys Cars fans?" And he snickered. And his response was, this song was written as an homage to Magic by the Cars. So if you're a fan of Magic by the Cars, you need to look up Hollywood by Collective Soul. It's probably one of my favorite Collective Soul songs, especially after hearing that story about it.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love this song. And if you do listen to Playlist Wars podcast, you know that I love to drop covers when applicable.
Mm-hmm.
Butch Walker, who is one of my favorite singer-songwriters of kind of the last 20 years, covers the song in a montage called My Best Friend's Magic Girlfriend. He has an EP called Heartwork, and it's a mashup of My Best Friend's Girl and Magic, which is a really cool acoustic-y cover that he did of it. And yeah, this song is just brilliant. It's fun. The I mean, like as a kid, you're singing along with it. It just makes you happy. And sometimes that's all a song needs to do. This song just makes you feel happy.
That is a great observation, because that is when this song comes on, if you're listening to the radio or you're shuffling your songs off your phone or whatever, I can't imagine a time or place where you wouldn't reach for the volume knob when this song starts. And that's the reason. And it's great for if you have a morning commute playlist. Fantastic song for a morning commute playlist. You can't be starting the day off, even on a Monday, in a bad mood if you hear this song on the way to work.
Exactly. It just makes you happy.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is all that music is needed to do.
Yeah. But it does so much more. And again, if you listen to this in on a really high-end stereo or in a good set of headset, a good set of headphones, there's so much going on in this song. So much. And it's amazing to me how Mutt Lange can build and build and build and layer and layer and layer little simple parts that just add up to this incredibly complex, lush sound. So many textures.
It is something that, again, I would love to have heard how Roy Thomas Baker would have layered this song. I feel like it would have been more akin to maybe one of the songs on Panorama, where it was slightly layered but more aggressive, because that riff, if you listen to the riff of Magic, the bounce, it's kind of aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive.
But the way that they were able to take it and make it happy between the keyboards underneath and the drum sound. Like, it's just a really complex way to make a simple song less simple. And because if you think about it, this is one of those songs, it's not, if you play guitar, it's not a hard song to play. There are other songs by the Cars that are much more complex, but damn, is it not fun? I mean,
Yeah. Love those power chords. Just bam, bam. It's just, yeah, it's tremendous. It's a great song. And that's why, and I know sometimes it's hard to pick between your favorites, but for me, Magic is the top of the list, and it's a great song.
that's my
But
number two. That's my number two, with behind one other song, which
yeah,
I think may surprise you. I don't know.
okay, we'll see. Track 4 is Drive. This was the third single off the album. It was released July 23rd of 84. It went up to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the mainstream rock. Or no, 3 also on mainstream rock. Number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. In fact, they loved it in Canada too. In the adult contemporary category, also went 1 in Canada. This was something that Rick Ocasek said on the In the Studio program. Are you familiar with In the Studio with Redbeard?
Yes.
So he said it was probably about a nervous breakdown, not my own, or maybe about false hope. I remember thinking it was kind of an eerie song. And I think you can see where he's coming from. It's sort of a dark song. Um, and the video bears that out as well. The video
Oh
is
God, yeah.
a very disturbing almost video.
Yeah, Timothy Hutton did a great job directing that. The black and white really added to the, I don't want to say macabre, but it was definitely a eerie vibe to
Yeah.
it. And I think that was courtesy of the black and white, because I think if it was in color, it might have taken away some of the mystery. And then obviously Rick's future wife was in the video.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to attempt Paulina, and I always say it wrong. So
Paulina Poroskova.
there you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. I mean, her beautiful, beautiful. Even to this day, she's just a stunning, stunning person. With this song, this is the most covered song off of this album with cover songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to mention 3 of them because I love doing this. On the 51st Date soundtrack, Ziggy Marley did a reggae version of it, which was really good. If you're into heavier rock, modern rock, 6 a.m., which is Nikki Sixx's hard rock band,
Right.
covers the song on the Modern Vintage album.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that
And then
one.
if you're a country leaning guy, Tim McGraw covered it in 2019 on his McGraw Machine Hits 2013 to 2019 compilation. So all 3 very different covers of the song, and they all work. And then not a cover, but a remix was put out, I want to say in the last 2 years or so. And it was called, I think the album was called Symphonic 80s. And it's Ben's vocal track with a symphony bed. And oh my God, it is just gorgeous. I mean, I'm trying to think of a word that would make gorgeous sound better. And it's just, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because hearing it with a symphony in his voice and knowing he's no longer with us, it's just so beautiful. And that's a fantastic version to look up if you haven't heard it.
It's interesting that Ben did almost all their very haunting songs. He did the vocals for their haunting songs. Even on this album, there's a couple other ones that are a little more, have more of a spooky vibe to them. And when we lost him, it was just such a massive, massive loss, especially after he put out that wonderful solo album, The Lace, which
The Lace, yeah.
is as good as any Cars album, in my opinion. It's just
I'll be
a
honest,
fantastic album.
The Lace is better than Door to Door, because Door to Door was just Rick and Ben fighting over who was, like, you could tell the animosity on that album. And I'm so glad that even though Ben's not on it, that they were able to do moves like this in 2011 to at least, I don't want to say it'll never replace Ben, but it cleansed the palette that Door to Door left behind, because Door to Door only had a few. To me, Heartbeat City is the bookend to Self-Titled.
Mm-hmm.
Door to Door is the band self-imploding, and moves like this is the coda that they're not all together. Life isn't perfect, but there's still music to be made. And now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, with with Ben and Rick gone, unless they do another formation of the new Cars with Todd Rundgren, which I'm praying for, because I would love to see any incarnation of the Cars live, just to see Elliot up there playing these songs, and David and
Greg.
Greg.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. Had a mind blank. Just to be able to see them and celebrate these songs one time would be a dream come true for me. So if they're watching this, Todd, guys, please, the new Cars, let's do it again.
What do you mean if they're watching this? Come on. Who doesn't watch Michael's record collection or listen to the podcast? Um, Very simple. Bum, 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 bum. Just a very simple parts to the song, but again, layer upon layer upon layer. And one of the coolest parts of Drive is that they went for that sort of 10cc vocal
Mm-hmm.
where they just kept layering and adding and just it's just gorgeous. The vocals on this are just gorgeous, especially all of the very subtle parts that don't even you might not even notice that they're vocals
Right.
unless you're listening to it loudly in your headphones. You might think it's a keyboard part or something, but a lot of that's vocals. So fantastic song. And we come to the end of side one, Stranger Eyes. Benjamin Orr on vocals. It's and I wrote down sort of a spooky keyboard sound, that doo 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 doo, melding with Greg Hawkes, melding with Elliot Easton's great guitar work over the top of David Robinson's drumming. It's like got a real driving drum beat to it, and there's a lot of subtle, intricate interplay in this song in the instrumental part.
Yeah, this is, believe it or not, if we were on Records Revisited right now, I'm spoiling it if I ever go on to do this album for a second time with Ben and Wayne, but this would be my number one song. I don't hate it by any means, but I think the song that was left off this album, Tonight She Comes, that they ended up putting on the expanded version, is a better track and might have felt more in line with the rest of the album. I felt like this one kind of sticks out a little bit. I don't know why. There's just something about it, but I don't hate it by any means. It just kind of, it doesn't hit me the way the rest of the album does.
I feel like the lyrics for this one aren't great. I think that's a weakness of this song. Maybe
It's
that's
just, yeah.
But that's your side one, and you flip over the album and you get the big hit, the number one single off the album. You might think it was released March 13th, 1984 as a single, and Greg Hawkes called this the perfect Cars pop single. The depth of the song is revealed again in a good set of headphones. I keep coming back to that because when I used to listen to this, it was on a cassette back in the day on a boombox or in my car, and you get road noises. And of course, I just had a clunker, so it didn't have like a great car, so there was all kinds of noise. But once you get in the right setting, just so much gets revealed, and there's more going on than just streaming it on your phone would tell you.
Right. Yeah, this is a very complex song, believe it or not. I've covered this song on one of the albums I actually released, unfortunately not on digital, because at the time I did not have the digital streaming rights for it. I was only able to get it from, I actually reached out to Lido Music, who was the ones who held the rights to the Cars music, and got Rick's permission to print 200 copies of this song on CD of my cover. So I have it on CD, but I never put it out digitally. And obviously I paid for the right to do such. He didn't just say, "Hey, Brian, no problem, man." I mean, I paid my dues for it, but I did this song acoustically and recorded it that way. And it's a complex song. There's a lot going on, even though it's considered just a simple pop song. The chord changes, the timing changes. It's just perfect, everything about it. And that was the reason why when I said, what car song do I want? It was immediately this one. Yeah. And on my version, I took some vocal liberties with it and kind of played with some of the verse a little bit because I felt like it fit the acoustic nature of the song a little bit more. But just being able to, I actually sent a copy to Lido Music, and I'll never know now, unfortunately, but I hope at some point maybe Rick heard it, just because, not that I was hoping that something would come of it, it's a thank you
Right.
because of how much I love this band. I had to record this song. And another example of that, on my second album that I did this attempt to use a cover song, I did Tom Petty's You're So Bad. And I went through the same routine, got the licensing rights, but for CD only. Because at the time it was very expensive to try to do digital streaming rights. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't making the money to even pay for the rights I was doing for the CD, let alone that. So I have those two that I keep on my computer because they'll always be special to me, kind of a time shot of life. But
Yeah.
as far as the actual You Might Think song, the video, iconic, memorable as a kid, the fly going around, like that was MTV. That was like, what am I watching? This
Yeah.
is one of the videos like Sledgehammer, like
It was
You Could
cutting
Call Me
edge.
Out,
Yeah.
and you Can Call Me Out was not cutting edge, but it
Right.
was just those memorable moments of your childhood. Thriller, trying to think of there's so many of them from the 80s that really just grabbed your attention.
Mm-hmm.
Beat It. I mean, Michael Jackson was awesome at them. But as far as cover songs go, for kids, I've seen many of Disney movies. The Cars 2 soundtrack, Weezer does a very faithful and fun version of the song on that soundtrack. So if you're into cover songs, check out, and who doesn't love Weezer?
Yeah. Or Cars.
All right, exactly. And there's a connection there because Rick produced the Blue Album, plenty of albums for Weezer. So the fact that they were connected, it made me smile, because when Weezer was covering it, it was kind of a nod to somebody that meant so much to them for producing the Blue Album.
Yeah, for sure. As you said, the video was iconic. It was, at that time, for music videos, that was cutting edge. Sticking Rick Ocasek's face on a fly. I mean, it was just, you're right. It was that moment of, what am I even watching right now? What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it, there was the one moment in the car where the girl is, uh, one frame she's like this, and the next frame her hair's straight up. Just all kinds of really cool stuff in that. And the band had a lot of fun with these videos. They didn't necessarily think that videos were they kind of thought videos could be a danger to music. I think they thought that, I think Rick Ocasek said that he felt like you were busy watching, and you were so engaged mentally with watching the video that you weren't hearing some of the things they wanted you to hear in the music. And he pointed out the fact that the You Might Think video, I believe it was the You Might Think video, was missing part of the track when it came out. And he had watched it several times and hadn't noticed that part of the audio was missing. So he said, well, if I am not noticing it, clearly there are other people are not going to notice that it's missing. So they weren't really sure about it, but they felt like it was, this is the way things are going. This is kind of what we need to do. So,
And I have to say, if they didn't do those videos, and I'm talking Hello Again, Magic, Drive, and You Might Think, I don't think that Heartbeat City would have sold as many copies. I think those videos were the perfect commercials for this eclectic album.
yeah, I agree with you. And MTV was such a driver of popular culture at that time. And they came along and just started doing their videos at the right time, and memorable videos that people were talking about.
Right.
Like people would get excited. Oh, it's the Cars is on, are on. You Might Think goes into It's Not the Night, which is, according to setlist.com, this was only played 15 times live, and I think that's a crime. This one was the one that was co-written by Greg Hawkes. It reached number 31 on the top rock tracks chart, despite not being a single. There are synth parts all over the place to start this thing, and then it gets a bit rockier with that Benjamin Orr bass line, another sort of dark, mysterious vibe like Stranger Eyes. And again, that's what Ben really excels in if you go all the way back to Moving in Stereo.
This is my favorite song on Heartbeat City.
All right.
I'm a big rock guy, and when that first kicks in with the bong, it's not the night, like it just when that kicked in on the stereo as a kid, my eyes lit up like, yes. And that was what I loved about this song. It rocked, and the Cars don't rock often, but when they do it well. And this song retains a little bit of that, I don't want to say punk, but that swagger once it kicks in and gets heavy. But it's also this kind of emo-esque vocals over it. So it kind of, it's like oil and water, but it works. And it's just so memorable. The whole Sweet Revenge theme that goes through the song, it's darker for the Cars, but the music almost sounds upbeat. And that's something that the Cars have played with since the first album, because Good Times Roll is this happy song, which is essentially Rick Ocasek saying how much he hates the music industry and the posers in it. But it's this happy song where you kind of think, that he's talking about something, but he's actually mocking you. Yeah. And that was something they were so good at. And it kind of comes out in this song. And I love the fact that both Rick and Benjamin are taking some vocal parts in it. I think they should have did it more often. And yeah, this is one of those songs that just always resonated with me as a kid. And I was shocked that it wasn't a single, because it is such a powerful song. And I know, some of the others, as you kind of close out the album, are not the ones that people remember, but I feel like this is one I wish they did remember, because, I understand the next track we're going to talk about was a single as well, but I feel like It's Not the Night was actually more memorable than the next track. And I don't hate the next track at all. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I think it is a memorable song. And it's one of those songs that maybe, when you spin the whole album, it makes you even pay more attention when it's on, because you realize this is a popular song, but it's a really good song. And I think that people always have an affinity for those deeper cuts that are really high quality, deeper cuts.
That's why I lose votes on Playlist Wars all the time, because I always pull them out and then I'm like, man, I didn't get as many votes as Gomez, but nobody knows this song. Yeah. Oh, the nerd in me,
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm a deep cut guy too. In fact, I think it hurt me to put that Gordon Lightfoot song on my playlist when I was on your show, because I was like, yeah, I think this only went to I think it was in the 90s. It barely made the top 100. Like, people aren't going to know what this song is. It's not even one of Gordon's best known songs in this country, but God, I love it so much I have to put it on.
And we just recorded a 1991 episode because it's the anniversary year. And I went with a few of the most popular albums, but really deep cuts on them. Some that were not even released as a single, barely in the set list, but were my favorite songs on the album. So, I kind of have to stay true to myself with that. And if I lose a vote, I guess, oh, well, Gomez will mock me for it. But if I like the song more, and that's what the show is about, the dialogue and the discussion, why not be honest about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody had liked a tweet that I put out months ago in response to somebody asking about Foreigner 4. And I said, my favorite song on the album is Girl on the Moon, which is not one of the hits. It was a B-side to Urgent, I think. And it's my favorite song on that album. It's just a great song. And I was like, that's just me. I'm a deep cut guy sometimes.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, the next song was a single, the fifth single from the album, Why Can't I Have You? Fifth single came out January 7th of 85. So now we're into the next year, and we're still releasing singles off this album, which is the sign of a very successful album. Went to number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 11 on the mainstream rock chart. Greg Hawkes said this about the album, or this song, I should say. The first song that we got on tape for Heartbeat City. So this is the one that they first got down, and it's probably one of my favorite songs on the album, and it's a bit underrated because it's a ballad, but again, the Mutt Lange treatment on this, there's so many little subtle things going on, and every time you listen to it, you can focus on something different.
Everybody always talks about Drive being the beautiful ballad, but Why Can't I Have You is gorgeous. It's the word I use to describe musically, what Mutt was able to produce on this song is lush. There is
Yeah.
so many beautiful sounds happening. Some of it, it almost becomes indistinguishable if it's a keyboard or a violin, the way he dialed the sound in. It's a keyboard, but the way it's being utilized, it feels like a violin, which plays towards this almost more acoustic song. But there are so many synth layers in it, and the vocals, the way they stagger them in the harmonies, it almost sounds like there's 4 people singing, but 2 of them are Rick and 2 of them are Ben, like almost kind of off timed with each other.
Yeah.
It's just, it adds this, sonically, it was just gorgeous. Like I can't think of another word. It really is one of the strongest songs on the album, and which was kind of furthering my argument of It's Not the Night being even stronger than that.
Yeah.
But earlier I said Magic was my second favorite. So Why Can't I Have You is probably 3 or 4. I mean, look, we're talking 10 songs here, but yeah.
And then when you think of the huge hits that were on this album, and you're thinking, some of these deeper cuts may have been better songs, and it just tells you how strong the album is top to bottom. So
yeah, definitely.
Speaking of deeper cuts, track 9 is I Refuse. This is an interesting song to listen to one channel at a time. There's a lot going on in one ear that's not going on in the other ear. And Mutt built something really full and dense out of these tiny, simple bits. Once again, the keyboards are just nuts. There's one bit that sounds like a xylophone at one point. Very interesting way that they constructed the song. And it's probably one of my least favorite songs on the album, but it's still a really good song.
I would have to agree with that. It's probably if we were, again, you shout out to Records Revisited and using their scale, this would be like my number 2.
Yeah.
It's not a bad song on the album. I expect to hear it after Why Can't I Have You, because it's a nice contrast to that. But I feel like it's a little more leaning towards the door-to-door sound, which was, okay, we've done this on the other songs, and there's not as much that jumps out at me in this song that makes me feel like it's one I would listen to just alone on a Cars mix.
Yeah.
And I hope this isn't being forward, but transitioning to the next song, it's literally a night and day difference, because for what little they're doing on I Refuse, what they do on the title track is just blow the whole thing up and take it to levels that aren't heard on even the rest of this album.
Yeah.
So it is the calm before the storm of the end of the album, I truly believe.
Yeah. Heartbeat City closes the album. 6th single, came out in September of 85. It charted in Australia and the UK, but not the US. It has these layered keyboard bits that give it a very dreamy vibe. I feel like this is a great song for a late night car ride. Like if you're on a long distance trip and it's nighttime, if you just crank this up on the stereo, it just will help the time go by so much quicker, even though it's not a very long song.
No, it's a fantastic song. Originally, it was the B-side to You Might Think. So that was the reason it wasn't released as a single in the US and officially released as a single in the UK. And honestly, because it was the lead single's B-side, I don't think the label expected the album to be what it was. And this was them trying to make up for it by releasing it as a single in other countries. Because if you release a B-side as a single within a year of it being a B-side, it shows you as the label made a mistake. And I think Elektra screwed up on this one, because this is probably one of the second or third best album closer by the Cars. All Mixed Up with the saxophone is my number 1 closing track by the Cars. But Dangerous Type and Heartbeat City are neck and neck for number 2. Fantastic ways to close an album. And Heartbeat City is that whole opening kind of feels like a musical highway happening in your ears as the song is happening.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a song that should have been a theme song. It feels like a Miami Vice type thing. It feels like this detective, knowledgeable cop kind of thing. I don't know. There's just this vibe to it, but it works so well. And I think you nailed it. A nighttime drive with the headlights coming at you, seeing the red taillights. It's just that the song was originally, I think, as a demo. If I'm looking at the deluxe edition, has some bonus tracks. It was originally just called Jackie. I'm so glad they renamed it because Heartbeat City is this song.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect closer to my second favorite Cars album and another genre defining album for the band.
Yeah. It makes you want to visit this place called Heartbeat City to see what it's like. I feel like it's a cinematic song. Like you talked about maybe being something on Miami Vice. I could see this as a big screen song playing while somebody's doing something and you know, you don't need dialogue going on. I think it would be a good use of the song. But again, just very dreamy, and that constant all the way through is very hypnotic. And again, just a lot going on. Just even, I don't even know how many, I haven't counted it, but I don't know how many ways they recorded just the vocal Jackie. Just, you know, there's so many different ways of singing that they sing that throughout the song.
Yeah, it's definitely the perfect closer to this album. I mean, it really, tone wise, pacing, everything. I can't picture any other song on this album closing it. I mean, they really nailed Hello Again and Heartbeat City as the bookends. They're perfect. And if you move them out, I think you almost take away from how great the songs are, because the track listing does play a role sometimes if you're an album listening person like I am.
Yeah.
And if you move these songs out, you make Heartbeat City a lesser album.
Yeah, I agree. I think they get the sequencing for these 10 songs exactly right. Exactly the way that they should be. So overall, Heartbeat City is a fun album. It's like the first 5 Cars albums, they're all artistic statements, but without being pretentious. They're artistic without saying, "Oh, look how great we are."
Mm-hmm. They were your everyman's band. They were the quiet guys in class. They weren't your rock stars. They didn't have the look. They didn't have the hair. They didn't have the swagger, but they had the music. And that's all that matters. And I think that's the most important thing about the Cars. They didn't need the rock star vibe or the attitude. They put the songs out, and the songs are what made them as iconic as they are.
Yeah. Where do you put Heartbeat City in your Cars collection in terms of, you know, we know the Cars debut self-titled album is number 1. Is this number 2? Is it 3? Where do you have it?
It is a neck and neck tie. I honestly love both albums the same with Candio, because Candio to me is the perfect second album by the Cars. Heartbeat City is the perfect, I say closer because I really, Door to Door really didn't do it for me. But man, it all depends on the day. I could say Heartbeat City today because we were talking about the album and now I have that vibe. And then tomorrow I go put it on, and halfway through Since I Held You, I'm like, yeah, I'm back to Candio being my favorite second Cars album, because I mean, there's just some beautiful songs on that one too, which, hell, if you ever need me to come back to talk Candio,
you'll be the first. Although I might have to bring you back for a Tom Petty episode.
Oh, hell yeah. I'd love to do more Petty.
One thing I was going to say, I don't remember if I said it at the time. I remember thinking it. You covered You're So Bad, which is such an unexpected Petty song to be covered. Is that why you chose it?
Honestly, I've always loved the ragtime barroom stomp feel of the song. And there is a video on YouTube, actually. I was lucky enough to play with a group that is unfortunately no longer around, but they were a bluegrass band called Hot Day at the Zoo. They've performed with Mo at a couple of the Mo Down festivals. And at the Triumph Brewery in New Hope, Pennsylvania, I covered You're So Bad with them. So we did a bluegrass version. And I mean bluegrass with the kick drum being a suitcase. So that type of bluegrass. And 3-part harmony, mandolin, stand-up bass,
Was
acoustic
there a
guitar,
washboard involved?
no washboard, but full bluegrass version of it. And I've always just loved that vibe of the song. And that song jumped out to me as the least produced song on Full Moon Fever, in a way where it was good because of it, because it any more, if you added any more to it, it would have detracted.
Yeah. It doesn't
So
sound like Jeff Lynne had anything to do with that song.
no, no. And
Which
that's
is,
perfectly okay.
yeah. And Jeff Lynne does phenomenal work, obviously. But yeah, that one, you were like, did Jeff take the day off that day?
But thank you if you did, Jeff. I still
Yeah.
love You're So Bad.
All right. So we talked about, I think, everything that I brought you here to talk about. But one thing I didn't ask you about, which I normally do, is your consumption of music, because you often will post some of your CD hauls. Is CD the primary way that you listen to music?
Yes, I was big into vinyl for probably 10, 15 years. And unfortunately, I came upon some hard times and I had to get rid of a lot of the collection. And along with that, I decided that it took up a lot of space in a smaller home, more space than I was willing to have it take up.
Hmm.
And as you can see, my CDs are in these plastic sleeves. I actually keep all the jewel cases and digipacks and everything stored in storage, but I keep all of my CDs in just a little cabinet in our living room that I can go and have access to 4,000 CDs at my fingertips.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly blunt, I got disenfranchised with vinyl when it started popping back up in Walmarts and Targets and Best Buys, and you no longer were able to go to a garage sale and be able to grab all these awesome vinyl records for 10 cents. People were trying to sell them for $50, where now I go to a garage sale and there's 30 people almost fist fighting over the vinyl LPs. And the woman's like, these CDs are 5 cents each. And I'm looking at them and it's like an entire Pink Floyd collection. I could like, I have literally gotten entire band discographies for under $1. And everyone, almost like the record guys, look at me and they almost laugh like, oh, you're stupid. Why? The CD format's fantastic because yes, it's a digital form, but you could still play it on analog equipment. If I have a very good CD player that plays through my system, and it's got the the digital to analog conversion in it. It
Hmm.
sounds fantastic. And I can also rip the CDs and put them onto my phone and put them onto my Sonos for when I'm just outside on the back deck. So they're portable and they take up a lot less space. So my wife is happy about that. So CDs have been my current obsession for the last 5 years. I do keep all of my favorite albums of all time on vinyl, as you could see.
Hmm.
But I've no longer buying I like 2 songs on it, I got to grab the vinyl.
Yeah.
I get the CD for that. Only if I like every single song on the album, and I'll have the CD. Once I like an entire album, start to finish, I grab the vinyl too.
Yeah. That's kind of how I am in some respects. I had, not a huge vinyl collection when I started getting the cassette came along and it was so much more portable. I started getting cassettes. And then the CD came along and it sounded so much better. I never had to, they didn't break like the cassettes did, and they didn't get
Melt and
tangled up in your stereo and all that stuff
oh,
that happened. As you can see, I still do the CDs.
love it.
This is part of my collection here, but for a lot of the same reason you do. I just have always liked having the physical copy for one thing. I always liked having the physical media and having it something tangible, even though you can't at my age read the lyrics very well in a CD. But like you said, I'm able to go back now and get titles that I never got the first time around at dirt cheap. I went to a Goodwill a few weeks ago and got for $1 each. I got Elton John's "Made in England" and Paul Simon's "Graceland."
That's amazing. And the thing is, people, And I almost don't want to talk about this on the show right now because I don't want people to be like, wait a minute, and then I can't find them anymore.
Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
amazing because look, let's be honest, when a CD is $1, I'll look at it and be like, this looks interesting. I'm going to gamble.
Yeah.
And if it sucks, I can just donate it back. And I did something good for charity as well. So I don't feel guilty about that in any way, shape, or form. And I love holding CDs in my hand. And look, if the internet goes out or if you have bad cell service, you lose Spotify. Or if Apple Music decides to pull an entire artist's catalog, unless our house burns down, which knock on wood, I hope it never does, I still have these albums. I'm not renting them from a service.
Yeah.
I've purchased them. And I talk about finding CDs cheap, about, older stuff, but I still buy anytime a band or artist releases an album now. I always buy the CD because I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream the album as many times as buying the album once is going to do to help that artist make more music so that way I can continue to enjoy their work.
Right.
And that's something that if the artist I like makes $5 off a CD or 0.5 cents off a stream, think about the amount of times I'd have to stream the album before the artist gets that $5. That might make him struggle to create more music that I enjoy. So yes, I'm buying the physical copy, and I hope if I can to buy it from them directly. If not, I do it from the independent music stores that I support, because if I don't go to the independent music stores, I'm going to have no music stores to go to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
it's part of this endless circle. It's this endless circle that I want to, keep this music industry thriving in a way that hopefully my kids can enjoy it the way I've been able to enjoy it all these years.
Yeah. The best thing about the vinyl revival is that it has prevented the extinction of the record store. And the record
Yes,
store experience was such a huge part of my youth, is
me
just
too.
even when I was in college, even if I hadn't have a cent to my name, I could go spend 3 hours in a record store easily just looking at stuff and going, "Oh, I
Mhm.
got to get this. I got to get this." But like you, I will support artists, especially independent artists. Especially important to support them so that they can continue to make music. But I mean, even Friday, I got the new ABBA uh, album came out, and I had to go get a physical copy of that. So, and
I haven't gotten that one yet, but I'm always going to. The last brand new CD I bought last week was Joe Bonamassa's Time Clocks, which
okay,
is fantastic. Oh, and I was at a record store this past weekend and I got the 2-disc special edition of Tattoo You by the Rolling Stones, which is another one I'm really enjoying. Disc 2 a lot. It's some good stuff on there.
yeah.
So highly recommend that one too.
And another great place to buy your CDs is when you go to the show. I went to see Christopher Cross recently, bought two of his albums on CD. They were signed, and they were only $15 each.
That's
Maybe there were 10. I don't remember. They were either 10 or 15. I forget.
and that's a personalized thing. And when you're buying it directly from him, he's they're getting the bulk of the money from an artist,
Yeah, absolutely.
as opposed to buying it at the store where the store takes a cut, the label takes a cut. If from what I've heard correctly with tours, they buy the merchandise first and then sell to recoup. So yeah, I'd much rather do it that way.
Yeah. Brian Colburn from Playlist Wars. Where can people find you on the internet?
All right. Very easy. Playlistwarspodcast.com. That's our home base. Everything about us is there. We're on everywhere, social media, on Twitter at Playlist Wars, on Facebook and Instagram at Playlist Wars Podcast. We recently started a Patreon account at patreon.com/Playlist Wars, where we have several tiers where we're doing things with bringing on guests to do a new segment we're calling Playlist and Album, where you take your favorite album and we do a 4-track playlist on it: side A, side B, side C, and side D. So that way, and we're going to do the voting just like we do a regular show, but it's like a mini episode, and trying to take some of our favorite albums and whittle them down some more. So if they're your favorite album, it's going to be hard and it's going to be complicated. And we're doing that with some of the Patreon members, as well as future episodes with stuff that they want to do with us. And anytime we release an episode, it's going up several weeks early to the Patreon account, ad free, so you don't have to listen to our ads, which helps us both as podcasters, as you know. So it's something that if you guys like what we're doing, we sincerely appreciate the support. But if you don't have the money, you can listen anywhere for free, and we appreciate that as well. Gomez and I put a lot of time into this, countless hours, and it's something we love doing. And the friendships that we've made through doing it with people like you and Records Revisited and all the other awesome shows that we've kind of interconnected with, it's fantastic. I hope next time I'm down your way in Florida that we can go CD hunting and catch a show together as well, man.
That would be fantastic. I have a lot of tears also, but those are tears that I'm crying because I'm not winning the vote on your 1971 episode of Playlist Wars. But
Well, I'm crying there with you right now. So,
Brian, this has been a blast. I appreciate you coming on this special bonus edition of Michael's record collection with me. It's been a joy to talk to you about Heartbeat City by the Cars. If you don't have this album,
shame on you.
what are you doing? What are you even doing? Go and get it.
I've got three, man. Look at this. Look at this. I got the regular. This is the original Japan. Like I told you, I'm sorry. This is the made in West Germany Target disc. Then I got the deluxe edition that just came out, the remaster with, and I got the vinyl. Yeah. I don't need the cassette. Sorry, guys. No cassettes here. But
were there CD singles from this album? We have to go on Discogs.
Oh, I don't know. If they were, it was before I was buying. I'm not a huge CD single guy unless the bonus track is something that I can't get anywhere else. Then I got no choice.
Yeah, exactly. Go to michaelsrecordcollection.com. Find out where you can get my newsletter for free via Substack. You can go to my Patreon, and if you like what you hear on this show, you can support in any level that you know is comfortable for you. I would appreciate that. If you have feedback for me, please write to me, michaelsrecordcollection@gmail.com. Brian Colburn, thanks again for being with me, and I can't wait to be on your show again too.
Likewise, man. It's a pleasure. I'm glad to have you as a friend and a fellow podcaster, and I thank you for what you do at Michael's Record Collection. I enjoy listening. I hope you keep up the great work, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of it.